How much do you personally know about the desert in Australia? I would be willing to bet you probably don't know a whole lot. Even if you're from Australia, I bet you don't know a whole lot. And yes, I've made 34-ish videos about this subject of Australia. It's not real, blah, blah, blah. Let's forget about that for a second. Let's forget about Australia being real or not real. Let's just say Australia is, just for a second, okay? Let's just forget everything I've ever said about Australia in the past, and let's talk about it with a fresh mind, okay? But can we do that, please? Please take away your hate for me. Take away whatever you think of me and this Australia stuff. Just forget about that just for a second. Okay? You done that? Perfect. Good. The Australian desert. You don't know much about it, I would assume. If you do know a lot about it, then please also be sure to let me know what you know about it in those comments. But I'm going to tell you something right now about the Australian desert that you definitely did not know. Something that may in fact change your entire outlook on not just the Australian desert, but on the country and maybe even on our planet and our governments and everything you've ever been told in your entire life as a whole. Folks, you see these pictures of the Australian desert. Nice looking place, I guess. It's you see these pictures and you think, oh, what a lovely place, and maybe you wouldn't want to be there, it's going to be hot, it's not going to be the greatest climate in the world, but that's probably true for any desert worldwide, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. What if I was to tell you, now that you've seen those images, that some of those images I just showed you were in fact online, labelled as somewhere other than the Australian desert? In fact, not just labelled as somewhere other than the Australian desert, but some of these images are labelled as somewhere outside of our planet Earth. Some of these images I just showed you are online, on, for example, the NASA website, labelled as pictures of Mars. Do you see where I'm going with this? I just showed you a bunch of pictures, some of which were labelled online as pictures of Australian desert, and others were labelled as pictures of Mars. Can you tell the difference between which is which? Can you tell which of those images are Mars? I guarantee you can't. And do you know why you can't? It's because they're actually the same place. And what I'm getting at here is that the Australian desert is fake. And I have come across the definitive evidence to prove so. And it is the fact that every single picture you've ever seen of the Australian desert is actually a picture of Mars. And I have the evidence. And you can see the evidence too. All you need to do is Google image search pictures of Mars. Then do a Google image search for pictures of the Australian desert. Compare and contrast these images. At most, you will find that the Australian desert labelled images have been slightly edited from their original state. Maybe the contrast changed a little bit, the saturation changed a little bit, maybe the sky made a little bit more blue. But overall, these are the exact same landscapes. These are the exact same place. And the images that I showed you in this video, the images you can find yourself online, prove this definitively. There is no argument here. This is fact. This is not just some wild conspiracy theory. I have the solid evidence. Now, is this evidence that Australia as a whole does not exist? I would not go as far as to say that proves that. But it does go as far as to prove that the Australian desert does not exist. And now what does that prove? Well, I would hypothesize, I would come to the conclusion that this proves partly or leans into my Australia does not exist theory. Because if you remember my theory, if you know what I've been saying, it's that Australia as the landmass doesn't actually exist. And that it's actually a place contained within a single little place in New Zealand. And this And this proof of the Australian desert not existing would lean into that. Because it proves that the desert aspect had to be fabricated. There are other images of people with their families in Australia because they're actually in New Zealand in this little place. But obviously you can't also fit a desert in there. So it makes sense when you think that there is a desert being taken from Mars, pictures there, and the Mars landscape is being edited, and we're being told that that is actually Australia. And for some reason, these people think that we're all so stupid that we would never figure it out. Well, they've never heard of Rag Reynolds, obviously. They had never met me. Because I did figure it out. You're welcome, society, for that. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for trying to say this. I know a lot of you people are going to be in my comments saying, you're delusional, you're drugged, you're blah, 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 you're so stupid, why are you being so racist? People call me racist. Can you imagine calling someone racist just for telling you the truth? Absolutely ridiculous. Since when was Australian a race? It's not, dummies. It's not. I'm just telling you the truth. You can like it or you can not like it. That is your call to make. But as far as I'm concerned, this is definitive evidence that the Australian desert does not exist, and that lends credence to my overall theory about the nation. Take this for whatever you will, take it how you will, but I've laid out the facts for you. Good day.